Hi, friends. Something really interesting happens during the holiday season. And the way I see it, just by noticing it in myself, is that what happens is we start to kind of adopt the internal narrative of what these holiday seasons, what it needs to look like, right? And that means how special it could be, gathering with friends, giving the gifts, receiving the gifts, being in contact with people. And if we're not careful, what we start to see is that there's a slow buildup of pressure happening, okay? And it's so automatic, but this is something we've been doing all our life. And this pressure is this buildup of this kind of collective expectation of what it means to be happy and stay safe, right? Within our family structure and with the community or whatever that means. And so what I want to talk to you about today is where that pressure is coming from. So first we want to really kind of see that there's pressure. And something that happened to me yesterday was really interesting. I tend to not do a lot of festivities. I kind of need my downtime, my alone time. But I like to do a little bit. And I said yes one too many times. And I got a twinge of my old symptom. It just came in. I was like, wow, what is this, right? And I had to come back and sit, and it took me a while to really understand what was going on. And what was going on was this underlying expectation of what I need to do to stay safe, or what I need to do to feel fulfilled or happy or special. And all those things mean safety, right? We need to connect, we need to have fun, we need to gather, we need to have meals, we need to do this. And, this is all coming into this underlying idea and expectation of what my experience needs to be. But what that does, because those are all protectors, right? Those are all going out and expecting what needs to happen to stay safe. That's the self-pressure. That's what self-pressure is a protection. Do this, do this, do this, and then you're safe, and then you're happy, and everybody is happy. But what this denies is what we really feel. And if there's some part of us underneath an exile that says, that's too much, or I don't really want to do that. It's that vulnerability that isn't being allowed to come out and express itself and be known. And so that pressure is pushing that down, and bingo, we get symptoms, or we get pressure, or we get stress. So I think the holiday season is a really, really good time for us to pause and see what the expectation is. Why? Why is it there? What am I hoping to get from it? And then taking it a step further and asking yourself, what if I said no? And what that triggers. Oh no, what will they think? What if I say no? Will I be disappointing somebody? Well, that's not safe. right? If we disappoint somebody. So these are the things that we really want to start to get curious about, and how the protector will totally deny the authentic self. Because the authentic self is wanting to allow, right? It wants to allow any exiles that are there, that are saying, I don't really want to. That doesn't feel good to me. And we want to allow these things. And if you use this inquiry that is saying, what if I said no? And you feel this little vulnerability starting to come up. Oh no, if I say no, I can't say no, right? That's that vulnerability that's in there that the protectors are trying to protect. So using a question like that when the protectors are really strong is an incredibly effective way to start to see what are they protecting? What if I said no? How does that make me feel? Well, then I might be alone, or they might not be happy with me. And we want to allow that. That's the vulnerability. That's what's real. That's what's going on. And everybody's running around trying to stay safe. They're doing this and this and this and this and this and this because that's what they think they need to do to stay safe. So can we get in touch with this vulnerability that is real, that has a voice that is much, much quieter than those protectors, that wants you to come back and meet yourself right where you are. Allow yourself to feel what you're feeling right where you are. I remember one time years ago, I was working a day job, and over the holidays, all of a sudden it got real busy and I had to work a lot. And our little kind of satsangi group planned a dinner, Christmas dinner. And there was a lot of expectation around it that I put on myself because I was the spiritual teacher at the time. And I remember going to that dinner, and I didn't want to be there. And I was exhausted. And I couldn't maintain that persona, right? The spiritual teacher persona. And I remember it started to make me feel really unsafe. It made me feel unsafe with the people I was around. It made me feel unsafe just to be there. I couldn't pretend. The protectors were ineffective. And all there was get me out of here. And, to this day, I kind of wonder, what was the energy that I was sharing at that time? I'm sure it wasn't the best. It wasn't my best. But I didn't have the self-awareness that I have now around the protectors and how we need to keep putting that pressure on ourselves to stay safe. I didn't have the ability to say no, because that would have been too unsafe. I would have let a lot of people down. But who knows, that I might not have. That might have all been in my imagination. Right? So this is a really good time to start to see these, understanding the protectors and the exiles. Now that we know about them, we can understand how they're operating in the holiday season, right? Or any time, actually, not just the holidays, but they're especially poignant right now. They're especially up. And it might be too, like maybe you aren't going out, and maybe you don't have family, and maybe you aren't invited to Christmas parties. I've been there lots of times. And that kind of like questioning self. Questioning. That's a protector. Am I doing something wrong? Is there something wrong with me? Why isn't it special? Maybe I should cook a big turkey dinner for myself to make it special. And what if I don't do anything? What comes up? Can I allow that to come up? Because that's a beautiful exile. And allowing it to be there from self, allowing it all. That's the gift we give to ourselves. I hope you found this helpful, and happy holidays to all of you. All right, take care. Bye-bye.